weird shit I've done as a scientist. I gotta get this information out here. I was a scientist. After the experiments they made me do, I I never came back to work. I'm sure they're looking for me now. I'm getting this information out there before they capture me, and I'm locked up forever. So, if I don't get the information out here, never will ever know the experiments I did and the rest of my scientists. Before I ran off, I worked with them, the government, as division of dedicated resourcing and spreading in mutations of common diseases as a number of unvaccinated people rose around the world. They began to realize that biowarfare may become a major threat, so of course we had to get ahead. At first the experiments were tame, testing on bats and animals, scheduled to be put down. I was given various strains and told to write down the symptoms they showed. At first I could recognize the names of the strains: measles, mumps, smallpox. It was difficult to watch so many creatures die, but I thought to myself, it could be worse, and tried to man up. Well, I was right. It did get a lot worse. It was August 12th, the day they brought in the little girl, a refugee who had crossed the border illegally. They told me the president had ordered this, that it was the next stage of the plan, that our subdivision was single-handedly saving our nation. I was a fool then. I listened to them gladly, injecting the innocent child with God knows what. The syringe they gave me did not list any strain on it. Instead, the label merely said Plague Number 1. I immediately felt uneasy at reading the label. I told myself in my head, the girl saw a needle in my hand and began to cry. Hey, it's going to be okay, little one. I won't let anything happen to you. I said smoothly. She didn't understand a word I said, but hearing the tone of my voice, she calmed down and even reached her arm out so I could inject her more easily. I took a deep breath and inserted the needle into the vein in her upper arm. With shaking hands, I pushed down the syringe and took it out, cleaning up her arm. In less than 30 seconds that took, she fell unconscious and began convulsing. Panicking now, I called in the rest of the staff, who placed her in a hospital bed in the observation room. It was against protocol to remain in the room, so we all stood on the other side of the glass, carefully watching the effects progress. A black substance began pouring out of her mouth, and she stopped convulsing. Pure terror gripped my stomach. In that moment, I knew that we were doing with this study could end our world as we knew it. I wanted more than anything to leave, but I knew that if I tried to, I would be executed or locked up. I kept looking on, trying to steel myself for the invalid of the girl, who was now screaming loudly despite still being unconscious and fighting against her constraints. I began to notice swelling, but I don't know if I can fully retell the horror that happened in that room. Below in my notes were taken within the half hour after the injection of the girl. The patient appears to have serious swelling near the crown of the head, and it is noticeable discomfort. After 5 minutes of constant swelling, the patient's head has combusted. The brain matter has landed against the observation window. It is a dark blue. Several pieces of the skull have been lodged into the ceiling. Upon the further investigation, it is discovered that no blood is left within the patient's body. It would appear that the mass migration of blood to the frontal cortex would be the case of combusting. All the other body fluids have completely solidified, testing of various doses and strengths to continue them all. I had to excuse myself as the little girl was wheeled out of the autopsy and hazmat went in. I felt as though someone had stabbed me in the back. I put a hand against the wall, trying to stop the ward from spinning. Nobody else noticed. The ward losing its color. The blue spatters spreading across the floor like a demented river. Everyone just carried on with the business as usual. The bastards. That girl that died, I killed her. I killed her. Oh God. Was most 4 years old. She would never grow up, never have a shot in this world we live in. That may be true, but this was the world she would inherit. I may have done a good thing. Connolly, my superior, pulled me out of this dazing reverie. Turner, HQ is giving you the rest of the day off. You will continue the experiments tomorrow. He walked away before anything else could be said. I went home in a daze, refusing to believe that my job was now slaughtering others. I believed in furthering science and futuring, but when does it end? The next day, Connolly handed me a much larger and bigger syringe labeled Plague 2. He pointed over my shoulder at the opposition room. I should use glancing inside. I thanked whatever higher powers there are that it wasn't a child. Look at me, happy to murder people as long as they're not kids. Oh God, what is my life anymore? Sitting on the horrible tables with a young man who looked to be in his 20s, head bent and wrists and ankles shackled. He looked up as I walked into the room, and I felt my heart skip a beat as I looked into his eyes, completely devoid of emotion. They stared up to me rather than at me. This was the hook of a man deeply broken. I knew that there was nothing I could do to help him, even if it wasn't injecting him. I injected him in the neck, and Connolly had ordered moments earlier. He joked up, looking at me. I noticed that the razors of his eyes were blood red and shut the door behind me, not knowing what to expect. Log 1287. Patient is standing directly on the other side of the window, staring into the distance, and muttering the language is believed to be Latin, or another ancient language. The patient is speaking backwards, slowly as he stares unexpectedly into the distance. After 5 minutes, the patient has begun to have blood escape from every visible surface. After 10 minutes, the blood has visibly darkened, and the patient is now yelling in presumed Latin. The patient appears to be incurring stab wounds from the invisible force. Patient is beginning to levitate. After 15 minutes, the patient has collapsed in a heap on the ceiling. Patient has disemboweled themselves and is dying. As the man was taken to the autopsy, I shut my notebook and slid down the wall, only to be immediately yanked up by my feet, Connolly's supervisor. Shit! Turner, wonderful job this is, she said, clapping me on the back hard. I'm honored to meet you. HQ needs you to go over a few things. Do not tell anyone about these experiences or you will be terminated. Do not interfere with the injections. You will be terminated. You have 3 more injections to carry on. If you do not complete them, you will be terminated. Understand? I nodded, terrified. She smiled at me, a poison-sweet expression completely devoid of any attempt at kindness. She handed me a small bag with the other 3 injections to test and marched away. The next 3 months continued in much the same manner. Clock in, inject some soul, deemed not worthy of living on this earth and dying in peace. Who are we to decide? Take notes, repeat, clock out. That would all change on November 17th. As I walked toward my desk, I could see another of those small briefcases on it. The ones that always held injections, it was marked differently than the rest, with a large label reading Tenebras. I would later learn that Tenebras was the Latin word for the day. Waiting in the observation room was a young woman who looked to be at most her early 20s. Hello, doctor. she said shyly, startling me. In all the months I had been working on this horrid project, not one patient had spoken to me. I didn't know how to respond to the woman. I would mutter, so I simply nodded and noticed that Connolly's supervisor, whose name I had learned to be Bridgeforth, stood outside the observation window. "Hurry up, injector!" "Turner?" Bridgeforth crossed his arms instantly. I nodded and looked back at the woman. She seemed to be steeling herself for what was to come. As I prepped her for injection, I whispered in her ear, "Do you know what's happening?" She kept looking straight ahead, but nodded slightly. A wave of disgust washed over me. Hundreds of people had passed through this door, blissfully unaware of their fate, and now I must kill someone who knew what was happening? I knew what I had to do anyway. There was no saving her, and if I didn't, then we'd both die. So I injected her, her eyes glazed over, and she went unresponsive. Bridgeforth walked in the room and said, "Sit up." I looked at her confused and tried to interject, but before I could say anything, the woman sat up, eyes still glazed over, began instructing Bridgeforth. The woman began to groan as black veins stood out on her neck and wings pierced through her back. Her muscles grew taut and expanded beyond regular human capacities. She easily grew. She obeyed every order Bridgeforth gave her, even breaking the exam table with one hand and crumpling it into a ball. That table was built into the ground. "That will be all, Turner. You are dismissed." On the way home, I thought everything I had seen over with the ability to create and control superhuman through injections. Injections could be also made into gas forms. If we were to use them in war, there would be absolutely no chance for the enemy. Civilians would lose their lives to become mindless slaves for the land they had no love for. I knew I had to do something. But what could I do? Everything I could do was think of a plan to go back and destroy the building and destroy the experiments. But that's all going to take time. Time we might not have. So I'm on the run. They're after me. I keep traveling further and further every day. I never stop. I barely sleep. They're going to get me one day. I just hope I have time to destroy what they've already created. Hey guys, Man 6.7. Hope y'all enjoyed this story. That was a very creepy and freaky story. I'd say the story I got that I just read y'all is off of Read It. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. I know some stories on Read It are true and some aren't. But even if that story ain't true, it definitely was a pretty creepy and freaky story, I'll admit. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'll have some more stories coming out soon, some more stories for the Skinwalker. As you can see, the file went out during the video. Well, that sucked. And not only, guys, I'll be camping out here pretty soon. I finally decided that enough playing around, I want to camp out here. So, yeah, y'all can stay tuned for my next video camping. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. I've never camped in the summertime. So I guess we'll find out. Yep, so stay tuned, guys.